Whoops, 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 whoops. Little hazardous here. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Yeah, good. I thought I was going to have to get you warmed up, but I think you're already ready, right? Already warmed up, got your coffee, heard a few jokes and inspirational stories. So nice to see you all here today, and it's so thrilling to be back in person. Well, I'm Deborah Roberts, and I am so delighted to kick things off with you this morning with this fabulous, fabulous panel of women. We were talking backstage, and, of course, I have to say, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. And when you look at this stage, you are looking at the future of entrepreneurship. It is women of color, the fastest growing group of women business owners in this country. And certainly was before the pandemic. We were talking backstage, and Michelle said, I don't know all of these women. Melissa said, I don't know all of the women, but I know of them. We've been on chains together. I gather there's kind of a sisterhood amongst you all with the world that you live in, having to try to figure out businesses together. Is that right, Melissa?
Yes. Well, Jasmine and I were connected over the phone. I think we did a Zoom call or something early on in the pandemic to compare notes on how to survive these major changes to the market, to our businesses, and to plow ahead. And Sheila's been an inspiration to me in the line of work that is caregiving and creating solutions for caregivers for many years. So it's great to meet you in person.
Well, I want to talk about your businesses because all of them happen to be in the world of care. And I want to talk more about that. But let's talk about entrepreneurship to begin with, because by definition, entrepreneurship, and I looked it up, a great journalist, right? One who organizes, manages, and assumes the risks of a business enterprise. The word risk scares many people. Sheila, did it worry you when you think about risk and stepping out there on your own?
Definitely did. In fact, I took a moment when I wrote the business plan for care.com, which I founded in 2006, and I paused it, Deborah, because I was worried too much about how I was perceived. Risk-taking is also a sense of reputation, as we know, and we don't want to put ourselves out there. And I didn't want to be labeled that I was running a women's business in a strange way. I was pursuing a hot mobile entertainment company instead. And it was a girlfriend of mine who actually said, I can't believe you're doing all these experiences of grad school and having worked on the internet, that you're going to do a babysitting company. So I paused it.
Yeah.
I paused it. It was a pretty big vision, care.com, to try and provide access in the last mile of care for nannies and babysitters. And now 38 million members are served by the company in over 20 countries. We took it public in 2014. I don't run it anymore because we sold it to IAC. But back to your question of risk, if I didn't actually throw myself into it with what was in my heart and what I believed and conquered the issues of perception, I don't know that what's been so fulfilling for me is that we created a company that's touching millions of lives and creating impact. And sometimes we just have to remind ourselves of that. And so the meditation helps me kind of conquer those fears.
Well, we all need meditation, that's for sure, especially today. When you think about, though, what you're doing, I mean, at the heart of entrepreneurship is sort of like filling a void, right? And all of you, I'm sure, looked and sort of felt that there was a void that you were, I see you nodding there. Jasmine, tell me about the idea of like how you landed in this place of trying to fill a void and jumping out there.
Well, it's interesting because when my grandmother experienced breast cancer, I remember her shopping experience, and it was inside of a medical supply store for her bras and breast forms after her double mastectomy. And it was behind aisles of bedpans and laxatives, and I just remember thinking that she deserved so much more than that, and she deserved a dignified experience, and she didn't need to be reminded of her cancer diagnosis every time she needed a new bra. So we opened the doors of Cherry Blossom Intimates in October of 2018 to give women dignity back to that shopping experience. Yeah. Thank you. And it's a place where breast cancer survivors can shop alongside their best friends for post-mastectomy bras, but then they can also buy like sexy panties too. But then in COVID, we had to pivot. So we now offer virtual fitting services through Maya.com, and that has really changed the game for us. So we had to find where women were, what they were missing, and then give it to them. And in one way, it was in a brick and mortar store, and now it's behind their laptops or from their smartphones, so they could be fit from the comfort of home.
That's so important. Melissa, let's talk about your business, Mahmee. And, as I said, all of you are in the care industry, and yours is all about maternal and infant care. Tell us a little bit about what led you to that place.
Sure. Well, Mahmee is an integrated care delivery platform for maternal and infant health. And we work with health systems and payers across the country to design outcomes-based programs that ensure positive birth outcomes for all new mothers and babies. And that whole vision for creating a technology platform that could provide that sort of telehealth care and ongoing support across the pregnancy and postpartum spectrum came from working with my own mother. So my inspiration was my own mommy, who's a registered nurse in obstetrics and a board-certified lactation consultant for over 40 years. And so I grew up around maternal and child health. I never thought I'd go into it because my mother was considered such a guru and such a specialist in the space, and was so well respected for her work. I thought I'll go do something else so I don't live in her shadow my whole life. While I was working in technology in the education field, designing software that would ensure that students didn't fall through the cracks of the education system, and ensure instead that they had wraparound support by all of the different professionals that can be there across the education journey, whether in junior high, high school, and college. As I was building software in that realm, my mom said to me, gosh, if only we had something like that in maternity. We have all of these different kinds of providers, nutritionists, lactation consultants, doulas, midwives, therapists, and so on, that are providing that wraparound support other than the OB and the pediatrician. But we don't have tools like this to stay connected to each other as caregivers to ensure we are all walking the path with our patients. And so I said, well, what if I built that for you? And she said, you could never. Challenge accepted.
And you said, wait and see. One of your investors is Serena Williams. And many of us may know the story that Serena nearly died in childbirth, which is not uncommon amongst women of color. In fact, black women are 2 to 6 times more likely to die in childbirth than, say, white women. Tell us a little bit about that in your mind, your goal in trying to change this, because clearly that has factored too, I'm sure, yes, into your business model.
Absolutely, and I'm sure many are familiar with Serena Williams' story, and I don't need to tell her story for her. I can say that the fact that the maternal mortality rates are what they are in this country, and specifically with major disparities in care for black women, and that someone of her profile in the world could be affected by this kind of risk for ultimately not being heard during the care experience and during the childbirth experience is really what we're working against, what we're fighting against. Maternal mortality is a very complicated issue, and now looking back, when my mom said you could never, really what she meant was this is just a very complicated space. Caregiving is emotional labor, it is physical labor, it is a very involved experience both for the patient and for the provider, and it is all premised on trust. And so that degree of active listening that is needed to really meet the patient where they're at is an essential component to a successful healthcare system. What we've done at Mahmee is design a telehealth experience that allows the patient to have a care team virtually, a nurse and care coordinators that are right there meeting them where they're at and understanding their personal journey and advocating for them and making sure that they've got the other providers in their team. So really building out that care team with you.
You all represent strength and accomplishment and vision. In fact, Sheila, I'm going to brag on you a little bit. You just were awarded the Helen Drynan Visionary Leader Award from Simmons University. Congratulations on that. But I said to Sheila backstage, I said, okay, now you're in the crypto world, and I may not be the only one here who doesn't really get it. So you got to help me understand a little bit about your particular business in terms of the future and where you're going, because it is something that is a little bit ethereal.
Sure. Thanks, Deborah. You know what's so great of hearing Melissa's background is that you were in education and you're going into care. And I was in care, now going into education. And you can hear the passion in our hearts to make impact. So we sold Care.com February 2020. My husband and I, in the midst of the pandemic, we did not have a crystal ball, Deborah. We didn't expect that the pandemic was going to hit. But we were at home, and so we decided to learn about crypto. He and I were in 2015 at World Economic Forum at Davos and heard Jim Breyer and Reid Hoffman say that crypto was going to be the multi-trillion-dollar industry of the future. So logically, it made an impression on us. So we started to invest. And then I got invited to be a venture partner at NEA, New Enterprise Associates, where it's a private equity firm. And I was doing diligence on a crypto company. And it was in this diligence of a documentary that I watched of a grandmother in the Philippines, where I was born and raised. Her name was Lola Vergi. She was 65 years old, Deborah. And she had downloaded a crypto wallet. She lived in the rural provinces of the Philippines, undereducated and underserved.
Wow.
Downloaded a crypto wallet, purchased Ethereum, playing a game called Axie Infinity, and she was making more than the average rural income, and she was buying food and medicine for her and her husband.
Oh my gosh, she got it
So
long
she-
before we got it.
Yes, and this was mid last year, and I watched and I said, wait a minute, I think that Web3 and the metaverse are ready for global applications for social impact. And I love the concept of play to earn, that's onboarding, but what was in my heart was education. So this new company is called Proof of Learn, and it is a learn to earn. So imagine paying tuition, and then you've got Khan Academy, where you're learning for free. This one is that you're actually learning to code in Web3 while getting income.
Wow.
It's a whole different model, given what the ethos of Web3 is, and we're using the power of blockchain to create accessibility and credentialing and transparency across the globe. So think about it as a paper diploma, but instead it is recorded on blockchain to be transparent to all employers of someone who passed an assessment. Doesn't matter whether they're in Africa, or they're in the Philippines, or whether they're in India.
Wow, it's amazing, and it is the future. We know
Yes,
it is the
yes.
future, even though there are some ups and downs
Yes,
going on right now in the crypto world. One of the things that is so frustrating when we do these panels is they go so fast, and we start running out of time. But one of the things I do want you all to address, because the one obvious thing that I think so many of us understand is that when you are in business, and particularly women in business and women of color in business, while you may be growing and in spite of the challenges, there are challenges, particularly when it comes to resources, right? When it comes to those loans or those venture capitalists investing in your businesses. So for women out here, or anyone out here, because there are plenty of men out here too, but particularly women out here who are worried about taking those steps. You happen to be a Tory Burch Fellow some time ago, Jasmine. So you understood what it's like to get a lift in this world of business, but give us a sense, all of you, and Jasmine, you can start, for people out there who might be nervous about making that step and what it's like, and particularly now after the pandemic and having to struggle. Give us a sense of how you do that.
It can be challenging. You know, women receive only 2% of venture funds, which we know, though, that women perform over 63% better than men startup founders or all male teams. So you would think that investors would want to double down on women, which is what I encourage everyone in the audience who is an investor to really, truly look into, because your portfolio will thank you. But I think beyond that, as a woman founder, you do have to persevere. You have to overcome so many biases. We just closed a pre-seed extension of another $1.3 million, rounding us out to about $2.6 million. But what I would say for women who are interested in this is to not be afraid of the raise, not be afraid of the ask, to join an accelerator program if you can. I'm a former Techstars fellow, and that has really helped our company to grow in exponential ways. But I think even beyond that, also know that things are going to cost so much more than you expect them to. So raise a little extra. Have some cushion in your wallet.
And cushion is very important. Melissa, any tips from you?
Sure. Well, I second what Jasmine has said. And I actually had a text conversation very recently with a friend who's a fashion designer who's been seeing her business grow. And she texted me and said, should I go out for this loan? I heard that I qualify for a loan that's out there. And I asked her, Do you believe in the growth that you're seeing in your business now? Do you see this continuing, and can you continue to build with this? What would this money mean for you? And it was clear that there was fear in making this big choice, but that the data showed that she was ready to take her business to the next level. And just talking through that, finding someone in your community who believes in you and believes in your business and can help you see clearly really where you can go next with taking these kinds of risks is critical.
Well, they're playing us off stage here, I think, with these teleprompters. But Sheila, very quickly, the last couple of seconds.
Authentic boldness, just be you, be true to who you are, and serve and to just make an impact on the world.
Authentic boldness. If you think of nothing else, authentic boldness. Melissa, Jasmine, and Sheila, it was a real pleasure. Thank you all so very much, and I'll enjoy the rest of the day. Authentic boldness. Remember that. I like it.